Episode 4 of Tower of God. I honestly can't put into words how much I'm enjoying discussing this series with you guys at the minute. Usually I'm not a massive fan of keeping up with a seasonal anime every single week. Usually at the start of the season I pick a few, I start them, and then a few weeks go by and I just drop off completely, only to then come back to them usually around a year or two later. With Tower of God though, not a chance. I am hooked. The Tower of God team have, through their bait, hooked me in, and I'm here to stay. I've said this countless times by now, but Tower of God is my must-watch this season. Not that there's a lot to actually choose from to begin with this season, considering all the delays that we've got. Anyway, let's actually jump into today's discussion for this episode, shall we? So, this was the best episode by far. I really don't think there's any competition about that. This episode added a completely different perspective onto the story for me, which I found very, very interesting. This episode just kept constantly throwing out new mysteries for us, and I think that's definitely what I want to discuss today in this video. So, first of all, the 13 swords for the princesses of Jihad. We obviously knew about the Black March from episode 1, but now we have our second, the Green April. And as I was watching that, I was starting to think, there's a theme going on here. Colours, months. I mean, colours, that's fine. There's an endless amount of colours there to be utilised. But months, that's when my brain suddenly went, hang on, 13? Hang on, that doesn't work. What's this extra month added in all about? Then you actually get the reveal that it's called the 13-month weapon series. And you start to think, well, hang on, 13th month? Like, what is this 13th month? Where's that coming from? I think that's when I knew this series was going to be much more than just climbing a tower. If done correctly, this new dynamic for the series could be a really good one. Obviously you've got all these teams, which I think for the most part it's safe to say that none of the team members really knew or know anything about each other coming into this, except that they all share the same end goal of reaching the top of the tower. That's what they all share, and that's what makes them feel the need to work as a team. We see in trials such as this one, the Crown game, that teamwork is definitely a necessity if you want to reach the top. However, this episode definitely showcased that team unity is definitely not going to be easy to achieve. Because although I said they all share the end goal of reaching the top of the tower, it's become apparent that some individuals have their own personal goals to achieve on the way to their end goal. We see with Anaak, for example. She now wants the Black March. She was also called something by the girl on Rachel's team. We'll get into that team a little bit later though. But by having these personal goals of hers, she ended up costing her team the crown and ultimately got disqualified. And I can see this dynamic definitely playing a large role on the story going forward. Bam, of course, we also know he's got his own goals. I can definitely see him costing his team something drastic the first time Rachel stands in front of him. Because we all know how I feel about Rachel. I don't trust her. Which I now know I officially have reason not to trust her, because it was revealed in this episode that she just doesn't care if Bam dies. So I can definitely foresee a situation where the two teams face off and Rachel will manipulate Bam. We saw in this episode and previous episodes that Rachel raised Bam, and she's clearly raised him in a way so that she has full control over him. For example, we see in this episode that Bam does not betray a female because Rachel taught him not to. That's convenient, isn't it? She definitely won't be using that one against him at some point, will she? I think / hope that when Bam eventually realises that Rachel isn't who he thinks she is, that he has one of those moments. He snaps. He has a Kaneki moment, if you would say. He just has one of those switches in characters, because right now, don't get me wrong, I do like him, but he's not that interesting for me right now. He's a little bit boring. He's a little bit too soft. Not that being soft is a bad thing, I just think that in this world's and this series' current circumstances, if you're as soft as Bam is, I can't see you surviving very long. You have to be very switched on, very ruthless in the Tower of God universe, and I'm not so sure that Bam is right now. I think he needs a reality check, and I think once he realises the truth that I presume we're going to learn at some point about Rachel, that will be when that hopeful switch in character will occur. Anyway, a couple of things I want to go over before we finish up this discussion. Rachel's team. We all know my feelings on Rachel. I've made that very clear in previous discussions and this one as well. But now we have a slight glimpse into another member of her team. And boy, does this girl seem fun. I can't wait to see more of her, although she does terrify me a little bit. I feel like I can definitely see her and Aguero facing off and forming some form of rivalry. Same as that big dude and Rack, because, well, they're big. That's about as much as I'm going off to sort of narrow it down. You got Bam, Rachel, this girl, Aguero, big dude, Rack. We saw Aguero just absolutely bossing the crown game as well in this episode. He's definitely become one of the most interesting characters in the series by far. I'd say that him, Anaak, and all of Rachel's team are what are making the story as interesting as it is right now. Especially just seeing how strong Aguero is. Also, I need to know what is in his bag. I'm beyond the point of just speculating that he's got something in his bag right now. I'm treating it as fact that something's in there. There's got to be. It's clear as day. His bag got stuck in the Shinsu wall for a moment a couple of episodes ago. He's had someone comment on the weight of it. And in this episode, he showed that his bag is some sort of bottomless pit. He's pulled God knows how many chocolate bars out of there. He's pulled the crown out of there in this episode. And, oh yeah, devoured an entire Shinsu attack. I don't know about you, but that definitely doesn't seem like any ordinary briefcase if you ask me. But on that note, the Tower of God story just keeps getting more and more interesting for me. This episode followed the theme that has been going on throughout, that every episode has been better than the rest. And I can't wait for the next episode. Fingers crossed there's no cancellations at some point in this series, because I'm loving it too much. But I think I'm going to end my discussion there. If you enjoyed the video and this episode, make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you're not already to become a member of the Senpai Squad, and leave your thoughts and opinions on this episode in the comment section down below. But as always, I'll be seeing you guys in another video very soon. Until then, peace.